Hey everyone, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make music like Gellaitry. Before the video starts, I just want to let everyone know you can get the samples, project file, MIDI, and presets from this video in the description for just $5 on my Bandcamp. If you want to help out the channel or help me out, it really goes a long way, and I really appreciate it if you want to cop that. And yeah, here's the video. So, as far as the style goes, I put a bit of time into studying a lot of Sam Gellaitry's tracks and like just really listening to the kind of sounds he uses and stuff. And what I've picked up on is that it's not so much about like crazy sound design or insane like programming or anything. It's just a matter of doing everything smart and having like every element sort of in mind when you're working on each individual one. And you'll see what I mean more as we go on. But yeah, so to start off with, I'll show you just one by one. First thing here is this little synth arp I made. It's very simple. It just is analog with a square wave. I literally did nothing to it. I did go into the amp envelope and I gave it a bit of attack and like a very fast decay with no sustain. Just so you get that tight little like kind of just little blip, you know. I did give it a little bit of release because I don't know, it just sounded good. But yeah, as far as outside of the synth goes, I just have a reverb on here. It's doing very little. What it is I have the size way down and the dry wet way down and the decay time down a bit as well. So you just get this really tight kind of like spacey reverb, or not spacey reverb, but like roomy reverb to give it a little bit of space. I do this technique a lot if you've seen my other videos. It's just a nice way to kind of bring sounds to life without giving them too much reverb that's like overbearing or taking over the whole mix. As far as the MIDI goes, I just have an F minor 7 / like 9 / potentially other voices chord. I kind of just walked up the scale here, like I just sort of went and then following the sort of chord pattern where you go like 2 and then 3 and then 2 and then 3 and so on and so forth, and that just sort of restarts like that. You know, not too much to this. It's pretty simple. Again, it's kind of just a matter of like picking the key of the track, which in this case is F minor, and then just doing stuff like this. But having a layer like this can really help kind of like make the other ones stand out, because what's happening is like when the 808 is going down the chord progression, this is staying on the same chord, and it just kind of builds a little bit more tension, I think, for each new chord in the progression. Next layer I'll show you is this little brass stab. It's pretty simple. Just one that I had laying around, and I'll show you the original sample. Sounds like this. So, as you can hear, this is a bit different. I've put a reverb on here, which just gives it some space. And then I've put this EQ on here, which is boosting a little bit of the mids and a little bit of the highs, just to sort of bring those out, because this didn't really have a whole lot of high end. And then it's cutting out. If you listen to this stab, you can kind of hear 2 layers. You can hear like a lower sort of like, what sounds to me like sort of like an FM deep house style bass, and then you can hear the brass sound, or the horn. And so I wanted to EQ it to get rid of that little bass part and just get the high end. So that's what I did. Not too much to that as far as notes go. It just follows the chord progression. Pretty simple. Next thing up is this little vocal stab. And this is, again, like very simple. All I have is a little vocal one shot. It sounds like this on its own. And I put it into a simpler. And then I'm just sort of, didn't really do anything in the simpler, but I did give it a little bit of EQ. I just cut out a little bit around 100 hertz because I was hearing some kind of like low, breathy stuff in that area. Sometimes that can happen with vocals. And then I boosted the highs just to bring out a little bit of that kind of like presence / airiness. And then as far as the notes go, I mean, I'm just playing this thing that's in key with everything else. Not really too many guidelines to this. There's kind of a lot of ways you could go with vocal chops. I chose to do it this way. But the one thing I will say about this is that if you notice, none of these notes are touching each other. They all are like sort of staccato, so to speak. Like they stop pretty quickly. And that's something I hear he does a lot. Like if you make these legato, it's not quite as impactful. It doesn't have quite the same character to it that this does. So that's something that's important to note when you're doing those kind of things. As far as the 808 goes, so the 808 and the kick are actually like pretty much some of the most important parts for this style. So I'm going to talk about them in depth. So the 808 and kick together sound like this. And what the whole point of sewing these together is that a lot of the groove is coming from the interaction between the 808 and the kick. And what I mean by this is like here, you hear how the 808 went like dum dum da dum, and the kick just went dum dum dum. Because of this little note here, you get like a little bit more bounce in the groove. And also here at the end. So it's an important thing to note to do stuff like that. You need to make your 808 and your kick sort of like play the same thing but with little variations. Like also here, for example, the 808 is doing a slide down there, which obviously the kick probably couldn't do. But yeah, as far as the sounds go, it's pretty simple. I just used this kind of 808. I'll show you the original sound. Just one of those like kind of big hollow ones like Metro Boomin and all of those people use. You can find it in like most trap drum kits that are available. Really not a hard 808 to find, but this is the kind that I hear him using a lot in his tracks. Like, and for good reason. I think it really works with this style. I did put a little bit of a cut on it. I just cut out a bit around 200 hertz. Well, actually a lot, around 200 to like 100 hertz. It just sounded a little bit better to me, and it sounded a little bit more like something that Sam would use. As far as the notes go, it's pretty simple. It just follows the chord progression: F, C sharp, C. And like you can see here, again, it's just all these little notes, and I'll take this off of triplet grid. And all of these little slide downs and slides up, I guess, really help as well. That's definitely an important thing. And you can make those pretty easily. All you have to do is just make two notes that are like slightly apart. So what I mean by this is like here, this note starts here, and then this one starts right after it there. And then you go into your simpler and turn on this glide here. And then you set the time. I usually set the time pretty high, and they'll glide between each other. I'm trying to think of anything else. The kick is pretty straightforward. The kind of kicks that I would usually use are just like these powerful kind of trap kicks that really like slam the beat, I guess, so to speak. But yeah, not too much to talk about there. I'll talk about the hi-hats really quick. So the hi-hats are kind of like live hi-hats, as you can hear. And I got these from Addictive Drums, actually. But originally they sounded like this. And I actually pitched all of these up +4. I just felt like it sounded a little bit more interesting that way. And yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else. I mean, I put these all on a drum rack. I like doing it this method, where you put them all on a drum rack and just kind of like go crazy with the pattern, because you can have them all in one place, and it just makes it easy to do little like kind of cuts and edits. Like here where I did these little triplets and stuff. And yeah, the other thing I do want to talk about with these is if you listen to these open hi-hats, you notice they stop right when the next hit starts. And the reason why that happens is because I set this choke in here. If you don't know what the choke is, essentially what it does is it sets it so as soon as another sound plays, or as soon as another MIDI note is hit, that sound stops. And the reason why I did this is because if you think about like a live drummer, when you hit a hi-hat, if you know anything about drums, when you hit the hi-hat, you know, when you press down the pedal, it closes it, and thus hitting the open one right before that would stop. Or the open one that you played right before closing the pedal would stop. So I was trying to recreate that digitally, and this is a really good way to do it. So that's kind of important to do. I hear that a lot in his kind of stuff. Like, he uses these live hi-hats, and I think he uses addictive drums too, most likely. But yeah, doing that choke really helps make it kind of more realistic. Now the only other thing really is this clap, which, as you can hear, is just a pretty straightforward, kind of like clean, dry clap. This is just more about kind of like the texture of the sound than like really processing it or doing anything. Like, you really just need to get the right kind of clap and it'll sound good. And the kind of claps that you want are, again, like these kind of like high pitched, really tight, like very snappy claps. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Really not too much to it. Again, it's just a matter of sort of like making your elements play off of each other, like with the kick and the 808, and just the way I sort of did everything else. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today, guys. Make sure to let me know what you thought about this video in the comments. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, maybe even share the video if it really helped you. Make sure to also pick up this pack on my Bandcamp if you want to go further into this project file. And thanks again. I will see you guys again tomorrow for another video.